Welcome, everybody, to today's webinar on mastering customer service soft skills with AI. I'm Dr. Lewis Johnson, CEO of Alelo. I have with me here Rhonda Broughton, Alelo's VP of Marketing, as a panelist. She's going to be monitoring the chat stream. If at any point during this webinar you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and then we will respond to them at in the Q&A session at the end. We will also make these slides available for download, and of course, we will also make the video recording available. So a little background on me. I am president of Alelo, and my particular area of expertise is AI in training. I've worked in this area for a number of years, and I'm particularly interested in using AI to train soft skills, communication skills, cultural communication skills. And we've won a number of awards along the way for the work that we've done. Initially, a DARPA Significant Technical Achievement Award, a paper that I co-wrote on AI-driven avatars won an influential paper award. I'm past president of the International AI and Education Society. And just recently, we were co-winner of the X Prize Rapid Reskilling Competition, utilizing the technology that I'm going to be talking about today. So I've got pretty broad background in this area of applying AI to training. We're going to be talking mainly about customer service, but what we're going to be talking about here has application far beyond that as well. So let's talk a little bit first about some of the issues that we now see in customer service in the post-COVID economy. We now see that customers, they've been used to interacting with companies online, so they expect 24/7 support. And this causes a big training problem, that organizations have lack of trained staff to provide support at all times. And these are exacerbated by recruitment and retention problems. It's sometimes hard for organizations to find people who have the necessary skills, and they have difficulty retaining them. Many customer service workers work from home now, and that means they must be trained at home. So that makes a need for new types of online training solutions that can help people get up to speed. So, and what we see in customer service and broadly across the economy is that employers are struggling to find workers with the essential soft skills that they need to succeed as customer service agents. So we're going to be putting a lot of emphasis today on the issues relating to soft skills. So we're going to be talking in this webinar how AI-driven training can overcome gaps in customer service soft skills, especially for remote workers. And we're going to be talking also about how generative AI is accelerating developments in AI-driven training. We know that generative AI, things like ChatGPT, are attracting a lot of interest. We are also, at Alelo, also using generative AI, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that people might have about how to effectively use generative AI in a training context. I'm also going to talk a little bit about how you can implement an AI-driven training program in your organization and how to do it in a way that will achieve the best results. As I said, we're going to be focusing mainly on customer service, but really what we're talking here about are training techniques that apply to a variety of customer-facing occupations. So what we're going to be talking about here is how we can use AI-driven avatars, that is, avatars that run on a computer or a mobile device and can engage in conversations with learners that gives them an opportunity to practice, and in this case, particularly practicing soft skills. And the advantages of this is that it provides a safe environment where people can make mistakes and it doesn't have any negative consequences, without fear of peer pressure, of embarrassing themselves in front of peers. And what we find from this approach is that it improves confidence of the trainees and also improves their performance. And it does this rapidly. So rapid skill development and confidence development are some of the key advantages that we see from this technology. So there's a lot of attention these days on the soft skills gap generally. So, for example, from a recent report from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, they say that despite U.S. high school graduation rates reaching all-time highs, a growing number of employers across industries are reporting that job applicants lack the basic skills needed to succeed in the workforce. And in customer service, this is manifested in gaps in the core competencies that are needed to succeed as a customer service agent. And agents who lack these skills, they can perform poorly, and they also have a tendency to burn out. So poorly trained or agents who lack the necessary skills can find themselves getting very frustrated in these kinds of positions. And so tends to be a lot of attrition as a result. So what do we mean by core competencies? So here are some of the competencies that we consider important when we look at customer service as an occupation. And let's look at some of these. So one clearly is communication. And under communication, we see specific skills in persuasive communication, how to get your ideas across effectively, how to engage in active listening when interacting with a customer rather than just pitching to them, how to build rapport with customers. So these are some of the different aspects of communication that are important in customer service. Emotional intelligence is also very important. Ability to express caring and concern, ability to listen patiently. Professionalism, very important. The ability to support customers in difficult situations. The ability to engage in problem solving, to understand what the customer's problem is and work with them to solve it. In many customer service occupations, there can be a sales component as well, to upsell or to cross-sell products. And that depends, of course, on the particular customer service role. But we find often is the case that in the course of solving a customer's problem, a need for an additional product is identified. And so customer service agents ought to be able to respond to those. Good customer service agents need to have a good knowledge base, a knowledge of the products that they are supporting, and they need the ability to learn and improve, to gather information about new products, to be able to self-reflect and to improve. So looking at these, we see that first of all, soft skills are dominant here, and that we have specific focus in terms of each of these different soft skills. So this is one reason why we look at soft skills in a context of an occupation such as customer service. Something like communication, that many people have a need for communication skills, and some of the core capabilities under communication, such as active listening and rapport building, apply much more broadly than customer service specifically. But we like to focus on the competencies for a particular occupation, because there we can be more specific in terms of the skills that we're trying to promote. And then we can provide training that develops those, and we can measure the trainees' improvement. So this is all key factors in order to achieve good success in training in this area. Now, the way I like to think of this is use a bicycle analogy to explain the role for soft skills in a customer service context. So a good customer service agent needs to have hard knowledge of the products. So you can think of that as being the back wheel power and drive that the agent relies on to move forward. The soft skills that are more the front wheel skills that give the agent the ability to steer the interaction as needed to address the customer's problem. And so this, in fact, is one of the key things that we see as a need in terms of training this area, is give people the skills so that they can apply them flexibly. Methods that focus, say, on giving agents particular scripts to follow don't meet the bill, because they do not provide that ability to adapt as things change. It's this adaptability that we see as necessary for many customer service roles, and something that we emphasize in our own training. So part of the reason why there is such a skill gap in the area of soft skills is that soft skills present real problems from a training perspective. First of all, it's not obvious how to teach them. I mean, yeah, you can go read a book on soft skills, but that may or may not help you actually develop the soft skills that you need. One-on-one coaching can be very helpful, but is also very costly and time-consuming and not scalable. Practicing soft skills can be awkward. It can be very advantageous, say, to practice the skills that I was talking about here with a partner, but then that can be potentially awkward. People can feel self-conscious if they're put in a kind of a role play situation like that. And also, it's not obvious how to test these skills. Now, there are a lot of assessments that are available on the market, but if you look closely at those, often what they really are testing is personality. And that's because there are well-known personality tests that you can point to. But actually, personality is not what we're trying to focus on here. People have the personalities they have. We want to focus on the capabilities that we can train and develop. And so how do we do that? And recent developments in learning science offer a clue here. So there was a meta-study that was published earlier this year by Ken Kadinger's group at Carnegie Mellon University, where they looked at learning rates in a wide range of online learning applications. And they saw a consistent trend across these, which is that learning rates are primarily a function of the number of practice opportunities that the learner gets. So again, number of practice opportunities, not the number of videos that you watch, the number of PowerPoint presentations, but the number of opportunities to actually practice the skills that you are learning. And of course, this is one of the biggest gaps in a lot of online learning, and why it's a problem for remote workers is that so much online learning is passive presentational. And so that does not provide the kind of learning gains that we're looking for. I should also say that in our own work, our own products, we see this trend as well, that learning is a function of the number of practice opportunities. So what we then need are learning solutions that give learners lots of opportunities to practice. And simulations can be very effective here, both to give learners practice opportunities and also to provide a context for assessing learners' skills. And we do both of these. So in the customer service context, learners can then practice their skills with simulated customers. And they repeat the practice until they achieve competency. So this is one of the reasons why we find AI-driven avatars to be very useful in the customer service context, is that they can be used to simulate various kinds of interactions and give learners that opportunity to practice. So that's really the focus here, certainly of our work of Alelo, is to provide that opportunity to practice and to provide it on a range of different devices. And we find that the devices that of choice varies a lot. You know, prior to COVID-19, a lot of people were using their mobile devices, their phones, as being a tool for interacting with avatars. And we still see that, but during COVID, many people are working from on a laptop computer, and that's certainly the case for remote workers in customer service. So that is a use case as well. But our goal here is to provide people opportunity to practice wherever and whenever they can. So what are some of the benefits of this approach? Now, from a learning perspective, we see that these AI-driven avatars, they exploit two powerful learning principles. One is learning by doing, which is what simulations offer, and also learning by explaining. So in many of the training products we create, avatars are actually asking the trainee questions about a product, or saying, hey, I've got this problem, can you help me solve it? And this is another way to give people an opportunity to practice applying what they are learning. So we regard these kinds of learning by explaining or question answering as another type of practice opportunity. I emphasize this because there is a lot of interest in chatbots these days, things like GPT, as things that can answer questions. And there certainly is an important role for that. But we find that really avatars that ask questions and really probe the learner's understanding are really most effective in what we emphasize. So it's a combination of this question asking and practice in real world scenarios, in simulations, where again a lot of customer questions may come up. Advantage, as I said, is that learners practice whenever they want and get immediate feedback. And I think this is an important thing to emphasize. There are some other training solutions out there that involve avatars that require a human operator in a control room somewhere to control the behavior of the avatar. Now, that kind of approach is not scalable, and it may not even be reliable, because it depends upon that human controller to provide a realistic training experience. We don't have any of those issues with AI-driven avatars. The technology runs in the cloud, which makes it highly scalable. So people anywhere around the world can access this technology, run it on their device. This type of technology is great for soft skills, but it applies to just about any occupational decision-making skill. And that covers the gamut. We've seen applications from military training to customer service to healthcare to training mining workers. Any occupation where you have skills that involve communication or decision-making, and that applies quite broadly, are ones where avatars can provide an effective training approach. So that is the basis or the rationale for the learning platform that we've developed at Alelo. We call N-Skill, that provides the following functions. And I consider all four of these to be important. So one is communicative practice with AI avatars in a safe and realistic environment. Another is immediate feedback on how well you did, very important. Personalized practice activities. So basically, after you as a learner have gone through a practice scenario, N-Skill will suggest additional practice activities to focus on the particular areas where you need to improve. And then finally, analytics to measure performance and learning gains so that instructors, so that managers can track the progress of the learners. These are all important aspects and go beyond, if you will, just sort of the superficial application of chatbot technology such as ChatGPT. It's these additional capabilities that really, where the power of this approach really is realized. So now let me stop for a sec and show you a couple of live examples of how this type of technology works. And then we can discuss in further detail. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up a simulation here in my web browser on my laptop computer. And I'm going to start with a basic example of just modeling how you would have a conversation with a coworker to set up a meeting. And this is really just to provide the context so you can understand how and see how this technology works. Call Amy.
Hello, this is Amy.
Hi, Amy. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great.
How can I help you today?
I'd like to get a meeting on the calendar to talk about the new project.
That's a good idea. What day do you want to meet?
How does Thursday look for you?
Thursday is good. I have time in the morning and after lunch.
Okay, how about we do it at 10 o'clock then?
I'll set the appointment for that time. I've put it on the calendar. Should I send you a reminder?
Yes, that would be great.
All right, I'll send the reminder. I'll call you if anything comes up. Can you tell me your extension?
Sure, my extension is 779.
Great, thanks.
Okay, then, I'll see you later. Okay, so we'll go through this in a bit of detail in a moment. But you'll see here is that I was engaged in spoken conversation with the avatar. So that utilizes a combination of natural language understanding technologies, such as you see in something like ChatGPT, as well as speech recognition capability. The reason why we do this from a training perspective is it provides, of course, a realistic simulation of conversation with coworkers or with customers. It's also useful for a training perspective because we can monitor how much time it takes for the trainee to respond and proceed through the conversation. In other words, we can tell the difference between somebody who really has mastered these skills and can go through a scenario effortlessly versus somebody who's having to stop and think about what to do. And so we're looking at two things, both the effectiveness of the conversation. Did I meet all the objectives in the conversation? And then also how much time to complete the conversation, and not really so much total time, although that is certainly an important factor, but how much time does it take the learner to respond to each question or query from the avatar. So these are combined to provide an overall score. I mention this because there are training products in the customer service space that will look at how much time each call takes, and that is certainly an important factor. But if you're just looking at call time without looking at what the agent is actually doing, are they able to accomplish the objectives effectively, then you really have not effectively measured the skills of the agent. So in this case, I get an overall score, and we normalize these scores so that somebody at a trainee, if they perform well, they get up to around 100%. It is possible to get beyond 100% if you really have mastered it and are, have gone above and beyond the training level. But we try to set a realistic goal for, especially for beginning trainees, to be able to achieve. So in this case, I got a high score for a couple of reasons. One is I was able to meet all the objectives in this conversation. And so it reviews back with me what are the objectives that I accomplished and how well they, was I able to meet those? And then how much time did it take me to go through the scenario? And so I was really on the low end in terms of time required to complete the call. So at this point, I've got now the option to practice some more if I would like. If I had encountered difficulty along the way, then it would have suggested additional exercises for me to perform. So again, the feedback depends very much upon how the trainee's performance goes. So that's the basic capability. Now let's apply this in a customer service context in a more challenging scenario. So I'm going to now pull up a customer service mini course, which has a couple of customer service simulations built in. And what I'm going to be looking at here is one involving dealing with a difficult customer. So in this case, I'll go through this conversation. I have to keep in mind what are some of the key things that I need to do to communicate effectively as a customer service agent, particularly with working with a difficult customer. So I need to be able to engage in active listening. I need to be supportive. I need to acknowledge the customer's problem and reassure them that I'll be able to address it. So now let me sort of go through such a conversation and let's see how it works. So I'm now going to start with an initial customer conversation. This is with a fictional bank, in this case, Acme Bank. So you'll see here that I'm applying general customer service skills, but again, in the context of this this fictional bank. Now, in your industries, you may not be involved in banking, and you certainly are not, working for Acme Bank, but the core competencies apply broadly across customer service. Now, of course, one can then augment something like this with training scenarios that are specific for your organization, but we recommend that you start with something that's more general. Part of the reason for doing it in a more general way is you give the agents a broader understanding of what the skills they are actually learning, and then the ability to apply in a range of different situations rather than just apply it for the specific product or the specific scenario that they have been trained for. So now let me begin the call. Hello, thank you for calling Acme Bank. This is Louis. Who do I have a pleasure of speaking with today?
Name's Tom.
How can I help you today, Tom?
I have a loan application open with you guys for a refinance on my mortgage. I can see on my online portal that everything is ready to go, except the verification of my wife's income. We talked to her boss and the information was submitted almost 2 weeks ago. It's getting really frustrating.
I'm really sorry to hear that, but I'm sure I'll be able to help you out with this.
We've done our part and the loan agreement will expire soon. I've talked to 2 people already and the last one just put me on hold forever. Work called and I had to hang up. I'm not getting anywhere with this.
I'm sure that's very frustrating. But I assure you I can do my best to help you out here.
So what do we do here?
Well, I'm going to take responsibility for looking into this problem and coming up with a solution for you.
Hopefully you'll be able to do more than the last guy.
I'll do my best. So let me start by bringing up your account and seeing what's going on.
All right.
Okay, so tell me, when was the paperwork sent regarding that, your wife's employment?
About 10 business days ago.
And how did you send it to us?
Email to the address you guys provided on the application. The people I spoke to before said that's all you're missing.
Okay, let me speak to a manager so we can figure out what to do about this.
Okay.
I'm going to put you on a brief hold now.
Sure. Just don't disappear on me.
I promise I will be right back in just a moment. Okay, so this is a much more complicated scenario, but more objectives to meet, but same basic idea. I was able to go through. I succeeded in applying the various communication skills necessary for dealing with difficult customers. And by the way, I actually personally had to practice quite a bit in order to get to this level. That's sort of that's the if you will, the beauty of this kind of approach is it gives you opportunity to practice as much as you want. And yeah, dealing with irate customers is challenging even when they are avatars, but it's a way better, easier than dealing with actual irate customers. So this provides that kind of a safe opportunity to practice. It also provides the trainee an opportunity to say different things, try different techniques. I should also make clear going through this that I was not following a particular script. I just had in mind this particular approach for handling customer service problems, so ASAP, which is apologize, sympathize, accept responsibility, and problem solve. And that's exactly what I did. I can go through here. So I did. I was very much on target in terms of my overall score. So, and this information is all recorded. So a manager or a trainer can review this later on in order to be able to see in more detail how somebody proceeded through this. So I'll just give you an example here. Some training data actually that I put into the system, and I'm showing you that this is part of a new soft skills course that we are about to launch. I'm showing you my own data so that I'm not raising any privacy concerns by showing the training, the learning journey of individual trainees. But I think what you'll see here is the kind of training profile that we like to see trainees go through. So what I can see here from the view is, first of all, in this soft skills course, how much time I spent in practice with in these different scenarios. So in this, the two examples I showed you, setting up a meeting and dealing with difficult customers, are part of this soft skills course. So I can see that I spent nearly 20 minutes practicing with this difficult customer. I went through the scenarios 8 times and completed it 8 times. I can also see what my progression was, and this is fairly typical. You can see at the beginning, I was starting to use, I used hints occasionally to get through it. I didn't meet all the objectives consistently, but as I practiced more, I was able to do that more consistently. And my speed in going through the conversation improved. So we're looking here as the number of speaking turns per minute. So I started out at around 4 turns per minute, and by the end, I was getting up around 5 turns per minute. So this is a typical profile that we see trainees go through as they practice. The more practice opportunities they get, the better their performance, the less reliance on help that they require. And so this provides an insight to managers or instructors in terms of how people are doing. It's also possible to actually review a particular conversation. So here, for example, we can review what I said to Tom in this earlier practice. We could actually listen in, see what I said that time.
Thank you for calling Acme Bank. How can I help you today?
So you can see there, I was mostly on target, but what did I do wrong? Well, first of all, I kind of had to stop and hesitate, thank you for calling Acme Bank. One thing I did not do is introduce myself. I should have said, hey, thank you for calling. My name is Lewis. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today? So these are additional things that a trainer could then pick up on simply by looking at the transcript of what transpired. So we recommend this highly for people to go through and review these transcripts. It helps keeps the trainees accountable, and then helps trainers to focus in on the particular areas where the trainers need to improve, where the trainees need to improve. So, and I should also mention that as we go through this, as people are using the platform, it is constantly collecting data. As you saw, actual recordings, transcripts of interactions between trainees and the avatar customers. And that's important, not just for evaluating training, but also for training the AI models. So it helps to focus the training on the trainee skill gaps, and then we can use the data to improve system performance. So, and we see this as an important part of AI-driven training systems. Although systems like ChatGPT can be very effective, if you will, out of the box, we see better training performance if we're actually training the system on real examples of customer conversations. So, and this approach, we have tested it. It's gone through independent validation. We used this method to provide in the XPRIZE Rapid Reskilling competition to train people to become community health workers. So you could think of community health workers as being, the customer-facing members of the medical team. So they need to have good communication skills, just as a customer service agent has. They need to help patients to overcome problems in obtaining care, just as bank agents would. So a lot of the same skills and competencies are similar in these different occupations. And this actually builds out of work that we originally did in providing training for the U.S. military and continue to provide training for. So that we started out by creating simulations of scenarios overseas, and then gave people an opportunity to practice their communication skills. And so we've really continued to expand and develop this approach. It turns out to have broad applicability. So now let me take a moment to talk about how generative AI is affecting all of this. So we started doing work in this area before generative AI came about. We now are incorporating that into our platform to expand and strengthen the capabilities of avatar-based training systems. And we see other people taking similar approaches, that rather than just sort of use ChatGPT as something out of the box, rather integrate that, incorporate that as a component technology. What are some of the advantages that we are getting from that? Well, one is that that the ChatGPT can actually not just provide feedback, but provide hints to the trainee of ways they could have communicated better, provide much more specific feedback. Also, having that capability enables the avatars to handle a wider range of conversations, an important strength. One thing that we find very exciting about generative AI is that you can quickly create prototypes of training chatbots that could then be implemented using avatars. And to do that, it really is critical that you use the technology in the right way, using what's known as prompt engineering. And for people who are just getting up to speed with that, I highly recommend deeplearning.ai's prompt engineering short course. I think if you go through that, you get a quick understanding of how the way that you provide instructions or prompts, in other words, to a system like ChatGPT can affect the quality of the results that you get. But even with that, you have to understand that with this technology, as any technology, you need to understand its limitations. General advice that I give to people who want to integrate generative AI into their training solution is, first of all, use it to augment training, not to replace it. Don't think of this as something that takes the place of trainers. Again, as we said here, use it for practice and assessment. Don't just use it for answering questions. Create prototypes that can then be implemented with avatars, and as using a good understanding of prompts, of prompt engineering is all very important to that you provide very specific instructions to a system like ChatGPT of what you're looking for. This will minimize the risk of what's known as hallucination, of the large language model providing answers that are incorrect. What you look at in practice is that when that happens, it's often because the user has provided a very vague question that then generated an inappropriate answer. There are other things that you can do. For example, you can prompt ChatGPT to estimate the likelihood that its answer to any given question might be a hallucination. And it does a pretty good job at that. So you actually then can build in checks into your application of generative AI to maximize the likelihood that it is going to provide good results for you and minimize the risk of inappropriate results. In general, if you're thinking of implementing an AI-driven training program, here's some of the things that I recommend. First of all, in terms of the training objectives, it's a good idea to choose a combination of general competencies for the occupation, such as I showed you, and organization-specific skills that you want to target. So, and certainly the particular products that you're providing customer support for, that's going to be specific to a given organization. But what we find is that what is commonly useful or works well is a combination of off-the-shelf training in soft skills, such as what Alelo provides, and then specific training or custom developed training that focus on the particular needs of the organization. As I highlighted throughout this, it's important to target mastery and not seat time. And I can't stress that more often. In learning and development, it's so common to measure training in terms of the number of training hours. And I think one of the most important messages I want to get across here is that training hours depends upon the need of the trainee to achieve mastery. And so keep that in mind. And then related to that, it's important to set clear targets in terms of mastery and hold the trainees accountable to achieve them. If you just tell them, oh, here's something you can use to go practice in your spare time, but do not follow up to make sure they actually have applied that their training effectively, you're not going to get as good results. The best results we see are combining the asynchronous practice on the platform with instructor-led sessions. Those might be in Zoom or some sort of conferencing system. But again, that's another way of holding the trainees accountable, and also provides that human connection, which is so important to sustain, and will also ensure that the trainees are then fully prepared to interact with real customers. And then as this is going on, collect the data from these training scenarios, use it to train models and improve performance. So systems like ChatGPT are really remarkably good in terms of the kind of capability that they can provide out of the box, if you will. But you're always going to get a better result if you are relying on training data from your actual occupation, from your actual customer service scenarios. That's the best way of getting the best possible result. So just to summarize, the future of training is now here. The future of AI-driven training is here. This is a very exciting time, certainly for someone like me who's been involved in this field for some time, to see it actually, it's now possible to do things that we only dreamed about as just a year ago. So now is a good time to start implementing this type of training solution in your organization. Here is my contact information if you would like to follow up either by phone or by email. We will make these slides and this recording available for anyone who wants to have a look. And we've got a few moments now. Happy to take any questions. Rhonda, did any questions come up during the discussion?
Hi there, Liz. No, we haven't had any come in yet, so we'll just open it up and see if anyone has any specific questions they'd like Louis to answer.
Any questions you can think of in the meantime, Rhonda, that you think it might be good to elaborate on?
Well, I think it's maybe just reiterating the point that this is a tool that allows you to assess and skill it all at the same time. So you're able to actually assess what your folks know. At the same time, you're skilling them immediately as well. So those conversations are giving you your assessment tool and you get all the scores, but at the same time, you're skilling. So it's something that is, you're able to multitask in how you approach your training.
Yeah, let me elaborate on that actually. So an approach that we've sometimes implemented and recommend is that you can give trainees initially simulations as assessment to basically figure out what their skill level is. And that's a way to kind of place them at the appropriate level in terms of training. So you can separate the ones that sort of need basic practice in communication and soft skills, and unfortunately, we see many people entering the workforce that meet that characteristic. Separate that from people who sort of have the basics down, and now you really want to focus in on the techniques for effective customer service. So simulations can be used to kind of provide initially that placement, and then provide that practice opportunity at whatever level people happen to be at. I'm going to stop my screen sharing also so that we can actually make it easy to have this conversation.
We did get a question. One of the questions from Paula is, what are the users' reactions to the tool?
So, hi, Paula. I'm glad you could join us. I happen to recognize Paula as someone who has worked with this kind of technology, and I would say the reactions are quite positive. I mean, I think that this matter, and so when we talk about users' reactions, we can sort of look at the, if you will, the trainees' reactions as well as the trainer's reaction. And I think from the trainee perspective, they like the fact that this gives them an opportunity to practice in a safe environment. The trainers like that the trainees find this to be a very engaging way of learning, and they also can observe the progress that their trainees are making. So we find that once trainers understand how to use the analytics that we develop, they find that to be very useful and very powerful. It takes a little bit of learning on their part to be able to get to that point, but once they sort of get the hang of it, then they find that to be a very useful technique. So those are examples of some of the reactions. But overall, people like a lot using this kind of approach for training.
Okay, and while we wait a couple minutes here for any additional questions to come in, one other thing to touch on, Louis, might be that really you showed two terrific examples of the gamut of the animation that we could use. You saw in one case where the avatars were full on and interacting with facial expressions and what with the learner. But you also saw an example where it was just the voice the AI was interacting with based on audio, not necessarily a visual. So it was great that you were able to show those two, different examples. Can you tell a little bit about when you might use some of those different types of, interactions?
Well, so I think part of it is, what kind of interaction are you trying to simulate? Are you trying to simulate a face-to-face interaction, say in something like hospitality? Well, then you need an actual avatar in order to be able to model the non-verbal reactions of the customer, not just the spoken responses. If people are going to be working over the phone, then there's much less need of that. But you saw, even in the example that I showed you with with Tom, the frustrated customer, we put up stills to kind of give you a sense of what the reaction is of the customer in the situation. We recognize that that's not fully realistic, but it's helpful from a training perspective to kind of provide feedback, if you will, to the trainers in terms of to trainees in terms of how well they're doing. On the other end, we see interest in providing this technology in like a virtual metaverse environment, and there you're providing all kinds of feedback, not just what the avatar is saying, but their body language, the things that they're doing. That all can help to make the training scenario more realistic. So then you sort of have to ask the question of how much benefit you get from that, and is it worth the additional development time to create one of those virtual world scenarios? So those are some of the trade-offs that we deal with all the time. But even where we see value in something that's very realistic and animated, we like to start with something that's simpler to get the basic training scenario right, and then we can make the decision, okay, is it now worth it to further animate, to add realism to the experience?
Great, thank you. And it doesn't look like any additional questions have come in.
Okay, that's good. A lot of people are going to view this from the recording. That's fine. And again, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach me at ljohnson@alelo.com, and be happy to talk further with you about this. So I think we're good for now. We'll close the session. Thank you, everybody who participated live. And for those who view after the fact, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.